What's up, Cigar Enthusiast Network? I'm your host, Daymon.
And I'm your co-host, Matt.
You guys are watching Daymon and the Roughnecks on another ball-busting Tuesday. We're back at you with another great episode. We'll be right back.
What is going on, Cigar Enthusiast Network? This is Daymon and the Roughnecks, back for episode 6.
Yeah, I think it is 6.
And yeah, we're here to bring it to you once again. Thank you for, coming and hanging out with us, tuning in, comment, liking, subscribing, all that good stuff.
We'd appreciate it if you shared. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Share with all your buddies, all your friends.
Yeah, especially the newbies out there, because we've been doing this series now. We're getting in on new stuff for everybody that's new. So, but anyway, how was this last week for you since last Tuesday?
Not too bad. Worked at the ranch a little bit. Let's see, what's today? Today's Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Sunday evening, I went fishing. Caught a bunch of bass on a new boat.
Hell yeah.
Had a good cigar out there, so that was cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, even that last time, excuse me, that me and you went out. Well, I guess the time before last. It's been a couple times. We've been going a bunch. Smoking a cigar out there on the lake is just like, man, it's so relaxing.
Yeah.
And fishing is like, oh man, it's like another, adds another aspect to it because you can just do that all day. I know I can.
For those, nobody knows, but me and Matt, I recently got a boat and we're practicing for bass tournaments this summer. So we're going to do some competitive fishing this year. Should be pretty fun.
Trying to sharpen up the skills, sharpen up the blades. I've never, prior to this year, or this last year, I didn't really ever bass fish.
No.
Just river fish for me.
And I've done it since I was a little kid, but never like trying to catch a big ass fish and win money off of it.
And that's just it. It's like you grew up with boats and being on the lake and stuff.
Right.
And that's something I didn't get to experience, which looking back it sucks, but now that I'm a father, I look forward to hopefully doing that.
It's crazy how much goes into bass fishing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like cigars in a way. You go in blind and you just learn all you can every single day. You're researching something and asking different people.
Yeah, just like what we're going to get into today, cutting it, lighting it, smoking it. I mean, as far as cutters go, there's a variety. Just like with fishing, there's, variety of poles, variety of lures, variety of hooks. There's all these different things that you can use, just like in the cigar world, to accomplish the same goal, you know what I mean?
Right. So where did we end last week?
So last week we talked about storing your cigar. So you ordered your cigar, store it, you get it in, you got to take care of it and get it ready for you to smoke. And we talked about how different people like to store it from, 2 weeks to a month to months. It just, depends on your preference and also what you're smoking and, what kind of cigar it is. But we're going to pick up just right off of that. So you get it in, you store it, and what do where do we go now? After we stored it, okay, we're ready to smoke it. Let's get into smoking it. Let's start with the basics.
Right. So I've been smoking those Black & Milds from the gas station, I like them. I order cigars. But I realize I have to store them a certain way. Alright, I think they've been stored long enough. Now I want to smoke it. But I pull it out, and it doesn't have a filter on it. It doesn't have a cap. I mean, it's capped. There's nowhere to puff from. There's nowhere to
Right.
smoke. So how the hell do I cut this thing? How do I go about cutting it? How do I go about lighting it? And how am I going to enjoy it best?
Right. Totally different. I mean, switching from starting out, simple, cheap, cigarillos, stuff like that, to something that you actually care about. That's, you look at it and you're like, huh, for somebody that's never, seen a cigar, especially with this one, which don't they call this the pigtail on these ones?
Yep, pigtail cap.
So yeah, like with something like this, somebody probably look at it and be like, do I just puff on it as it is? If you don't know,
Yeah.
you probably would look at it and be like, I guess that's the way that I'm supposed to just go about it, or you know what I mean? You might get confused, but yeah. So we're starting off.
Let's go ahead and light these bad
Okay.
boys.
Okay.
We're going to be smoking the Liga Privada No. 9 Flying Pig. And there's that little pigtail cap Matt was talking about earlier. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and use a punch cut on this guy. I usually straight cut these, but I'm going to try to punch cut it.
So I'm going to straight cut it.
I'm going to use my Liga No. 9 lighter. It's got the two different sizes of punches. I'm going to go ahead and use the bigger one because I think it fits right around that pigtail just perfect.
I'm going to use the undercrown. This is from the Shade cutter. I think you guys might have saw this last week. Really nice cutter, really sharp cutter. So I'm going to use this one for my straight cut.
There's that little pigtail cap. You can see it springs out like a little piggy tail.
It literally looks exactly like what it's called.
It does.
It's kind of funny.
It's super cold today. It started snowing out of nowhere. And I brought these cigars over to Matt's house about, 2.5 hours ago. They've been sitting in the garage. So mine is honestly a little bit dry and a little bit cracky, but I bet you it still smokes pretty well. Go ahead and torch the foot just a little bit. Now, Liga No. 9 is my favorite cigar. All-time favorite. It was one of the very first real cigars, I guess you could say. It wasn't an acid, it wasn't an infused cigar. This was my first non-Connecticut, real cigar, I guess you could say. A little history on the Liga No. 9 Flying Pig. It was released back in 2009. It's a 4 1/8 by 60 ring gauge, Perfecto, and it has a pigtail cap, as we were saying. I'm sorry, I'm writing my notes here. And I guess this was the first of their Flying Pig series, and it was based off of a photograph of a 1895 cigar salesman's size collection case. So I seen a picture of a salesman's collection case, and I'm like, damn, it's a little fat cigar, and I decided to make them.
That's pretty neat. I didn't know that about
And
it.
I got all this info off of Half Wheel, so if it's wrong, don't blame me.
So this is my first No. 9. And I'm pretty excited for it, just because we've had the T52, or I have. That was, my first time trying it, and I don't know, something about it. I mean, these look similar. This looks similar to a T52, and I don't know, I guess I really like the T52, so I'm pretty stoked.
I like this one a lot more than the T52. I enjoy the hell out of a T52, but this thing, even that first draw, whoo, it does it for me. So like I said, these were released in 2009, and it consisted of only 24,600 cigars. They noticed it was doing pretty good, so they're still being released today. They kind of upped their production, but they're still kind of hard to find. I bought a box of these, and I pick them up whenever I can. The wrapper is a Connecticut broadleaf. The filler is Honduras and Nicaraguan. And those that have better palates than I do and have done reviews on this cigar, they picked up leather, baker spices, chocolate, cedar, and like a creamy flavors. And this was rated 87 on Half Wheel.
Nice.
So it's pretty damn good stick, in my opinion.
Yeah. Initial thoughts are awesome, man. So far, so good. So, you guys just saw us get into the process. Cutting your cigar, toasting the foot, lighting your cigar. So that's what we're gonna go through on today's show. So the first thing we're gonna touch on is, the different types of cuts. There's tons of different types of cuts, and I've learned about this through Daymon and along with Daymon, and it's kind of crazy. And for some of them people that are like me or pretty new, they're probably intimidated, like, which way do I do it? Which is the right way? Which is the wrong way?
Right.
For me anyway.
Right.
So
So when you first get into cigars, you're gonna go look for a cigar cutter. You realize, I gotta cut this sucker. What am I gonna cut it with? And you go to a cigar shop. I don't have one here. I can't find any of my old beginner, like, guillotine style cutters, but I don't even have a way to show you.
they're like
They'll kind of be this shape, kind of.
it's almost like a long oval, right?
Yeah,
That's
they're
what I'm
oval.
talking
They're oval shaped. They're more like this shape, but you pinch it this way.
about. Right. You kind of bring your fingers together.
And the blades are dull as hell, and it's gonna.
They're cheap. I mean, I've bought a couple. I have a couple somewhere here in this garage that I can't find, and they're like $2.
They're super cheap.
Whenever I went to that cigar shop, if you will, here in town, they have like just tons of them in there, and they sell cigars, so they got to kind of sell some cutters. They
In a
don't
lot of
sell.
places, I've even seen them free.
Oh, really?
And once you know what you're doing and realize that you're more smashing your cigar till it breaks and you're not cutting it, you realize why they're free or why they're cheap. So with that being said, if you could do it and not get one of those cheap cigars, there's so many different cutters out there. You have your guillotine or your straight cuts, which is something like this. And this is the Drew Estate undercrown one. Or you get like a Zycar or a Calibri.
That's like a teardrop.
Here's
shape.
my Zycar, teardrop shape. Closes and it springs open. Funny story about this one. The other day I was loading my boat and it was dark as shit. And I was bending over, cranking my, I don't know what you call it, reeling my boat and onto the trailer to lock it on.
Yeah, the little ratchet
And
reel.
I had this cigar cutter in my jacket pocket right here, and when I bent over, it fell off into the water on the boat dock.
Oh shit.
And you bet your ass I took my shoes and socks off, and I climbed in that fridge of water and got this sucker.
These ones are for people who don't know. I wouldn't say pricey. You know what I mean? You pay for what you get.
They're about $50 or so.
It depends. Yeah, I've seen some
30 to 50.
50. I've seen some 70, 80. It depends.
Yeah, you get pricey for sure.
It also depends on what the graphic is. You know what I mean? There's all different types of graphics that are on these things that I've seen anyway.
Anyway, so I think that there's 3 main types of cuts, right? You got your guillotine or your straight cut, like I showed you here. You got your punch cut, which I made this punch cutter. It's out of a 9mm casing, and I put some acrylic on my lathe.
Yeah, that thing looks fancy.
And then you got a V cutter, which this is a cheap V cutter. It's nice though, it's sharp, it works great. It's not a real deep V cut, but it V cuts. And that's going to cut like a V shape into the tip of your cigar. They're also called like a cat's eye, a deep V, a crown. So a crown cut is where you take your V cutter and you cut it one way. You go perpendicular to that cut, cut another way. So it makes like a king's crown.
Right, yeah.
In the-
And I've
in the
seen
top of
I've
the
seen
cigar.
that on social media.
The V cut's also known as like an English cut or a wedge cut.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And Calibri, they make some fancy ass V cutters as well.
Right.
The straight cut is probably the most common.
I would say, yeah, for sure.
It pretty much cuts the cap off. You're supposed to cut like barely above the cap line. If you look on your cigar, you can see the cap line, and you're supposed to cut right above that. So it does cut into the filler and the binder. A punch cut is supposed to barely cut the cap off. So it's only cutting that outer layer of that wrapper off. It doesn't go into the filler or the binder. People say that they don't get as much flavor, they don't get as much smoke with the punch cut. But I found I like to punch cut like box press cigars. I really like to punch cut those. And there's 3 different types of punch cuts. Excuse me while I read my notes for a second. There's the bullet shaped, like which I got here. It's just, they usually hang on a keychain. This one here doesn't. And they usually have a cap on the cutter. This one doesn't because I leave it on my desk. I leave it wherever I'm going to be smoking and I just do it. But for the ones that you want to take in your pocket and travel around with you, they usually have a cap on them. So you can put it in your pocket, you take the cap out, and you punch your cigar. The way you use one of these cigars is you'll place it, I don't know if you guys seen me do it earlier. You'll place it on the tip of your cigar and you'll barely press down and you'll spin it real slow, real easy.
Right.
Until it barely cuts through that first layer and it pulls that cap off.
And so kind of touching on what Daymon said, this is kind of getting into lighters a little prematurely. But like what he's talking about, there's some lighters like this little guy right here. You might be able to see a little bit better. So this little guy flips out and you could punch cut with that. So, and to show you this one as well, this one's actually a Liga number 9 lighter. And we'll get into lighting later, but this is what he's talking about. So you got a couple other.
So they call that a multi-punch, which it just means it has 2 different sizes.
Right.
As you can see, like Matt just showed you, it has 2 different sizes of punches on there. You got your bigger ring gauge and your little bitty guy, which comes in pretty handy. That's the second type of punch cuts. And then the third one, they call it a Havana punch cutter. They're a little bit more fancy, probably a little bit more pricey, but the part up here that punches your cigar is actually sunken into the body of the punch, and it's pushed out with a spring. So it's like a spring loaded. So when you put it in your pocket, it's not going to cut you. It's not going to be digging into your side. You don't have to worry about your cap coming off, your cap unscrewing. They're just a fancier version. That's called the Havana cut.
Sorry, I have to get some circulation going in here.
And then we move into the V cut. A lot of them look a lot like these guillotine cutters. Like your nicer ones will look like this. But it's going to cut a V shape instead of a straight across. You can see on this guy here, that's the type of shape it's going to cut in the top of your cigar. They don't remove the whole cap. They just penetrate deeper into the filler and the binder. And these are preferred by a lot of cigar smokers for like the bigger ring cigars, like
Right.
60s and 70s,
Right.
your fatter cigars, if you will. People claim that they get more flavor, more smoke, and it's preferred by a lot of people. I really like the V cut. I need to invest in like a Calibri or a Zycar deep V cutter, but I just haven't.
Right. And I think that's one of those things that kind of comes with time. For me, on the topic of, we're just in one of the parts of what we're talking about tonight. But what I have wrote in my notes here is just make it simple enough for yourself. You know what I mean? Make it so that you don't overcomplicate it or intimidate yourself and you end up screwing up the cut or whatever the case may be. For me, a lot of the times, depending on what the cigar, like Daymon said, if it's a box press or what ring gauge it is, probably the majority of the time, I probably go with just a straight cut, like a guillotine, just because it's simpler and easier. And a lot of times, and for me anyway, you can see, where that cap ends. And I usually go
That
just a
cap line is what I call it. I don't know. That's probably not what it's called.
Yeah. And we're not too technical on that, but just cutting that off and just having it straight, it's just easy for me. You know what I mean?
And just because you cut your cap, right? You cut it and you're smoking it and something doesn't feel right, don't be afraid to go and cut it a little bit deeper, a little bit more off. A lot of times on certain cigars, I'll cut 2, 3, 4 times before I find that draw I'm looking for, that smoke production I'm looking for. So sometimes you'll have to cut more than one time, for sure.
Right. And another thing for, newer people, to make it simpler on yourself, if you feel like a punch cut would work best, there's a lot of times too where like I said, I have this lighter, which I bought from Daymon, that, it's kind of like, I want to say it's like the in-between size. And there's times where I want a punch cut and I'll kind of double it up, which may be frowned upon, I don't know. But do what works for you. Keep it simple enough so that you're comfortable with what you're doing. And
Right.
then and that's the biggest thing. Like I said, if you have a bigger ring gauge, there's times where I'll do it once and then I'll kind of overlap it over that other one. If I want
Two
a bigger
different
one,
punch
yeah. You know, kind of two circles, if you will, kind of join together. And it'll make it big enough so that, boom, you know, it works.
Right, you could definitely get fancy with stuff. Like I was saying with the V cut, you could do a crown cut. So I'd cut my cigar this way, and I'd turn it 90 degrees, cut it this way. So it forms like a star shape or a crown shape.
Yeah,
in
and
the
it looks super
top of
cool.
my cigar.
It looks super cool, and I've never done that.
I've tried it a couple times, and it's cool. It makes more. I don't know. I'm not advanced enough to say it changes the flavor, or, but I knew the draw was a little looser, and it produced the smoke production. Was
Right.
awesome.
Right.
But you could even straight cut. Say you cut the cap off, it's not drawn very well. You could get your punch cutter, you punch through that straight cut, and pull some of that filler and binder out. That's going to allow you to draw from a little bit deeper in the cigar, and maybe that's going to work for you.
Right. So that kind of covers our first little segment of cutting. You know, cutting into your cigar, getting into it, and all the different types of ways you might want to, you know, do that. So looks like we got some comments
I
on
got
there.
all kinds of comments on here. I'll start with the Orlando guy. You guys should be at Monte's Cigar Shop. Excuse me for my ignorance, but I don't know where that is, so please elaborate. We're here in New Mexico, and this is our cigar shops. Thanks
Maybe-
for commenting, man.
Maybe
Thanks
that's
for
where he
watching.
is. Maybe that's where he is.
Maybe he's
Sorry,
there.
let me get this wiring in. Sorry.
On Facebook, Alien Shock Trooper says, Crown cut, quad V cutting method, make it feel good. Yep, so everybody has their own way of cutting stuff.
Huh.
For sure. He also says that punch cutting 1 to 4 cuts is okay.
Huh.
So as you start going along, as you start experimenting with different cuts, you'll find what you like and what you don't like. Honestly, I keep it super simple, that's like my life motto. Keep it simple. I straight cut, I punch a hole, or I V cut. It seems to work just fine for me. That's where I'm going to keep it. Sometimes I'll get a little froggy and do something fancy, but for the most part,
Yeah.
just something simple.
And touching on that, like I said, that's what I do. I do what's easiest, and sometimes it doesn't work for me. I've done a couple cuts, straight cuts before, after my first initial one, because the draw, you know, or it's too tight on the top and I can't draw through it good, or, you know, something's funky.
Right.
And I think, you know, people that are fairly new and like myself, they'll kind of learn, you know, what they like or what works best for them. Punch cut, straight cut, V cuts. It's just a matter of what you want. And, you know, one thing that just kind of touched over my mind too is, so kind of going back, I know me and you, you know, we talked about it before the show. So before people even cut their cigars, you were saying that there was some people, which I don't know how rare or popular it was, they would bite the head off their cigar. And I think I've even heard of some people doing that still to this day.
Yeah, a lot of people, if you forget your cigar cutter or you don't have a cigar cutter, or back in the day, like in the military, I think it's like pretty popular in the military where
Right.
they just carry cigars in their pocket, they pull them out. They actually freaking saber tooth the shit out of that cap and just bite that cap off, spit it in the bushes, and go to light.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, and obviously that worked for them. How good, you know, you don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that still probably do that to this day. Hell, I mean, you see like, what's his name? The golfer, John Daly. I don't know if you know who that is. Super bright blonde hair, kind of thicker guy, older, awesome guy. Actually, unfortunately, I think I heard that he had like bladder cancer or something like that. Anyway, that's besides the point. Besides this, when he smokes a cigar that I've seen like watching golf tournaments and stuff, he'll literally just, you know, and you got them people that will just chew on that sucker.
Oh yeah, there's guys.
Like, it'll be straight, like, flat, like, you know, saliva all over it, just chewing on it, you know, no big deal. Which is, you know, whatever works for you. If you like just chewing on it, you know, that's fine. You know, do what works for you.
Just experiment with it. Just
Right.
Have fun with it while you learn.
Right,
Sure.
and that's a big deal. I mean, at least to us, at least to me. You know what I mean? I'm new to this, so I'm just gonna do what works and figure out what works best for me.
Yeah, for sure.
So I agree with that. So kind of moving on to our next segment. So you cut your cigar, however you wanted to end up doing it. You figured it out. You now you're ready to light this sucker up and to get going. So when I first started, what's the right way? You think of that in your head and you're like, how long do I hold the flame to it?
Right.
What kind of flame do I hold to it? You know what I mean? Like you go through these methods because, when you're smoking gas station cigars or cigarillos, if you will, cheapies, you're gonna buy what's at the gas station, right? You're gonna buy, and nowadays it's more popular to find a torch. I will say that, but years ago I think you'd find just a big lighter. Oh, can I get that fake lighter? Cool, whatever.
Right.
That's, I think, the most common way, that most people would, starting out, not knowing, okay, yeah, easiest, boom, let me just buy a big lighter, or a grill lighter, you know what I mean, the long.
Yeah, like when I started, I figured like a lighter was a lighter, right? And I could use a big lighter, or I could use like a grill lighter or a candle lighter. But you go to researching like anything else. If you're like me, you go to researching like what's the best way to light my cigar. So that's what we're here to kind of help you what I had to research and keep you from having to do that.
Right.
There's multiple ways to light your cigar. You could use a big lighter like Matt said, which I don't have, but everybody knows the little big lighter.
Simple, yeah. Little
non-refillable. You can throw them away. They're $1 at the gas station. You could use a torch lighter, which is like all these we have here. There's an example. Here's a big example. You could tell we like to use our torches. Here's another example. You could use matches.
Right. We don't have a matchbook. I mean, I don't know.
Here.
Like matchbooks. It's so funny actually. Speaking on matches, sorry not to interrupt you. I was at the gas station the other day and I heard a guy go in there and ask for a matchbook. Do you guys have matchbooks? And I'm like, I don't know his situation, whatever. Maybe he didn't want to buy a big lighter or whatever. But he literally asked for like a matchbook.
Maybe he's lighting cigars.
I don't know, maybe. But like I know that back, I don't know how long ago, that used to be a thing for like casinos and bars and all that stuff. Like they used to have their own little customized,
They're free too.
Yeah, customized matchbooks, and there was people that used to collect those.
Right.
Like everywhere they went, they'd get a matchbook, and I'm sure there's people that still have them to this day, like a little collection. But anyway, touching on that, yeah, I think they're pretty rare, but matchbooks.
Well, not only matchbooks, but they make cigar matches that are about this long.
Oh, really?
Lighting a cigar takes forever, right? You got to torch the foot, which we're going to get into. Then you got to puff on it. So, I mean, a matchbook, they're
tiny.
2
Yeah,
inches
and that's
long.
what I think when I
You
think
light
match.
it, you can't even. You take one puff, you're burning the shit out of your fingers. So they make cigar matches. And then you could use like cedar spills, like these here, which I'm going to go into in a second. So let's go back to our big lighters. Everybody's seen a big lighter. You buy them at the gas station. They come in all kinds of colors. They come in your American flag, your Eagles.
Right.
You get whatever.
Football team.
Anything you want. They're always at the gas station. I've never used one of these to light a cigar because I did my research and I found that they're not real defined and refined butane in there. And they're such a soft flame that when you're puffing on your cigar with that flame in there, you could actually suck in some of that flavor of that butane, excuse me, and that soft flame. It's gonna taint the flavor of your cigar.
Right.
So if you're gonna use a soft flame, it's recommended to use matches. And like I said, you want to use the long matches.
Right.
And a lot of guys, you'll see like real fancy suit guys, they make cigar matches that are about this long, 6-7 inches long. They'll light them, they'll twirl them around to where all the smoke leaves. Because when you initially light a match,
You get the initial reaction.
It's that flavor you can smell.
Yeah.
So they'll twirl it around, they'll let all that, I don't even know what the hell you call it, they'll let all the initial burn off. And and then they'll go to toasting their foot. And it takes a long time, but you're not getting any of that gas smell, that gas flavor, that
Right.
bad butane in your cigar. So that's a soft flame. Other guys, they'll take a cedar spill, which you could order some of these, and they come in a lot prettier pieces than this guy. But originally they were, if you've ever bought a box of cigars, there'll be a real thin piece of cedar in there. And this one was actually pretty cool. I can't put it back together, but because I've used it so many times. Had a Drew Estate symbol on there. It was pretty neat. But they're real thin, they're that thin, paper thin pieces of cedar. They're usually laying on top of your cigars in the box. So you take them, you break them up. You'll light one end. You'll hold it at an angle, let it burn a little bit, and you'll go ahead and toast your cigar. You'll toast your foot, you'll puff on it, and that's another soft way. You have no gases. It's all natural cedar, and even that burning right there, you can smell the cedar wood. And they say it kind of adds. They say it kind of adds like a cedar taste to your cigar, enhances that woody flavor that some cigars have. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
So that's your soft flames. And then you can go into torches, which Matt knows as well as I do that some torches are better than others. You could go from a gas station torch that's going to cost you $5, which I'm sure this is Matt's torch. I'm sure this cost you.
Gas station cheap. Oh yeah, $5-6. Yeah.
Cheap. And then you get into your fancier torches. I got this one for $50. It runs about that. You can find them for cheaper. It's a Drew Estate Liga No. 9 fancy ass one. But they make them even cheaper than $5. You can get them super cheap.
Right. I think this guy was what, $10?
Yeah.
$10. Super simple, but I showed you guys the punch on the bottom that flips out. But this one kind of looks like a Zippo to me. You know what I mean? Which, speaking of, that's probably another what? Yeah, I don't know if that's like a frowned upon one.
Well, like your typical Zippo, where you have the flint where it actually sparks.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about, like the old.
They're using the same like lighter. You have to put lighter fluid on the cotton, so that's going to taint your cigar. It's going to taste like lighter fluid.
Yeah, okay.
But Zippo makes a butane attachment where you take that whole piece out, like the Zippo you've seen me use.
Yeah.
And you actually fill it with butane, which brings me into and it turns it into a torch, which brings me into our torch lighters. There's hundreds of different butanes out there. You want to buy a high quality butane that's been refined and defined, and it's damn near 100% butane. There's nothing crazy about it. It's not going to make your cigar taste crazy. It's not going to give you any weird funky flavors or nothing. So that's the only thing I have to say about a torch lighter. That's why I think the torch lighter is primarily used. Pretty much everybody uses a torch lighter.
Right.
They're
And some
windproof. You can't put that sucker out. They're easy to use. You can refill them.
See, and that's just the difference between, like a Bic and this. But that's what's crazy too, is like going into torches a little bit. You gotta, I don't know. I mean, when I bought this one, I'm not gonna lie, I just kind of bought it because I needed one. This is all they had. Simple enough, does the job, right? But like even whenever I got to reading on this guy, it says not to keep it lit for like more than 6 seconds or something like that, which is kind of, you know what I mean? It's like, well, how not? You know what I mean? Because sometimes, you'll light it and you'll stay there for longer than 6 seconds.
Yeah, it usually takes me longer than that to torch a foot of a cigar.
Yeah, you torch a foot, and then once you're actually lighting it, it may not take you that long, but you just kind of got to be careful. You know what I mean? On a different kind of note, as far as trying to buy something that may be cheap. And yeah, I use this one. I typically, honestly, I have this one anymore. What I use this for is to light my little propane heater right here. But more often than not, I'm using something that's a little bit nicer, so that I'm able to, not get into a situation. I think the reason why they say not to keep these ones lit for so long is because sometimes they leak butane from a different spot.
Right.
It's liable to just blow up in your hands. So
Right.
kind of got to be careful with that.
Well, just like your cutters and everything else, you'll find which lighters you like and which lighters you don't.
Exactly.
Which method you like and which method you don't.
Right, and price points. I mean, I'm not saying not to go out and buy something simple. Do what works for you or what your budget allows you to do.
I've bought some expensive ass lighters that suck asshole.
Yeah.
And I've bought some cheap ones that work really well.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's another thing that you got to experiment with. Take people's advice, ask people what they like to use and what they don't.
So yeah, so kind of moving into our next point. So you're gonna light your cigar, right? So you're gonna get into it. So we talked about torch lighters, soft lighters, you know, the kind of the whole spectrum for somebody starting out. So what we did when we just lit our, you know, number nines, we toasted the foot. So that's something that I think, I don't know. I mean, I not that I sit in and watch everybody kind of start their cigars. You know, there's no way to, unless you have a bunch of cigar buddies or you're at a cigar lounge. But I think that's a pretty common thing to do is toasting the foot. I think, you know, probably the majority of people that smoke cigars do that. So that's kind of one thing that crossed my mind whenever I first started out. Is okay, like toast the foot, like, you know, why?
Right.
Why toast the foot?
Well, like your normal size cigar. So you got like a 50 ring gauge. This is a 60, and I feel like that's a pretty normal size, right? Compared to your gas station cigars, where you could light that sucker, puff on it, it's gonna light the whole thing.
Right.
Your tip of your flame of your lighter, it's tiny. So when you sit there and you you draw on the cigar, you're sucking that flame into the cigar. Wherever you have the cigar set is where it's going to draw that flame into, and it's only going to light that section. So when you torch your foot, it's super important to get an even burn. You can see this cigar here. I torched this foot, and that's a pretty damn even burn. You guys heard me say that these have been sitting in the garage for multiple hours before we smoked them.
Right, and that's, so kind of comparison to Daymon's here. So mine is pretty even as well. It's got its imperfections, but I haven't really had to touch it up. All but once, I think, when I first started to light it.
So when you torch your foot, you've already cut your cigar. You're sitting there, you light your torch, you light your lighter, you light your spill, you light your, whatever you're using your match, you're just going to twirl that heat around your cigar. All the way around, you're rotating your cigar, you're rotating your method of lighting, rotating it around, it's going to be turning orange. I like to stop every 5 seconds or so and blow on the foot of it. When you blow on it, it's going to light up bright orange. And the spots that aren't lit yet are going to stay the color that it started with. So the colors that aren't orange, you need to come touch that side up a little bit. Once it's all the way orange, glowing all the way around when I blow on it, I know that foot's toasted perfectly. But you got to be careful with torch lighters, because I've done it myself. I've seen lots of guys do it. They'll get real close up in here. They'll do it like this, and what that does, it burns the shit out of your wrapper. It turns it all black, makes it flaky and dry.
Right.
So make sure you're using it doesn't have to be in the tip of the flame, way up here. You can tell when it's working. I literally do it that fast. While rotating, it'll get hot.
Right, and on that, to touch on that as well, there's been times where I'm trying to touch up a lighter, however far down I've already smoked it, and sometimes I mess up and I get a little too close with that torch lighter, and it actually, it'll kind of burn into your ash. Like, let's say, right now I have, a good little amount of ash on here. If you try to touch it up, sometimes it'll hit that ash and kind of make it a little divot.
Right.
And then next thing you know, you're like, you don't think nothing of it, you go to take a puff, and it's so forceful of a little torch that it kind of burns through that ash, and then you go to puff on it, and boom, you're ashing yourself. And I've done that a ton of times, so.
Yeah, these torches are pretty powerful, and a lot of them you can turn up and down. I don't know if you guys can see that, but on the bottom you can turn it left to right, and it changes the depth of your flame, if you will. But I got mine set to where I like it, and I know how far away. Even when I'm going into our next point, you got the foot toasted, nice and even. You're gonna set it in there. You're gonna light your lighter, your spill, your match, whatever you will. And you're gonna put your cigar on the tip of that flame, and you're gonna puff on it while rotating. Because again, when you puff on the cigar, it's sucking the tip of that flame into a direct point of that cigar. So you want to rotate it and get an even burn. But I'm doing it way up here. And you guys can see that flame. That's what you want to see. You want to see that flame up. every time you puff on it. Go from the tip of the flame, that way you're not making it too hot, burn too fast.
Right, and I'm guilty, a lot of the time where I'll just kind of, I don't know if it's forgetfulness or if it's just wanting to get it lit. A lot of the times I'm almost afraid that I'm gonna, kind of rotate it out of my fingers.
Right, it
And
takes
it's gonna
practice
fall,
for sure.
yeah. So that's something sometimes I'll kind of accidentally just leave it there. And what I'll try and do is I'll light it, puff it, and I'll just rotate it, hold it solid, puff, hit the lighter again, rotate it, puff it. So that's kind of something that I do, which may or may not be right, but that's what I do sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I've learned pretty much to slowly rotate.
Right. Gentle.
You definitely learn as you go. What is the difference between cigarette smokers and cigar smokers? We always have torches ready to go. Speaking as cigar smokers. Cigarette smokers are always hunting for flame. We don't hunt, we just do it. That is right, alien shock trooper.
That's that same. So bring up like a comment again. That
I think
picture
that's
looks.
Michael Caldwell.
Yeah, that
isn't it?
picture looks like the same as Michael's from YouTube or from Facebook.
I think that's
He's on YouTube now. So it might be Michael. If it's Michael, shout out to Michael.
Shout out to you.
Last show he had a lot of comments and thoughtfulness to say, so we appreciate it. And thanks for joining us.
Right.
So like Daymon was talking about, rotate it. You don't got to go crazy close. Puff on it. You know what I mean? And get it to a point to where you light it and it feels good. It looks good. Everything feels right, and your burns even. So.
And we're not talking to you guys like we're professionals or know-it-alls or nothing.
No,
We're telling you what works best for us.
Yeah, what's gotten us to this point, and
If you're a beginner, I think you'd really appreciate this info for sure.
right. Let's see what another comment popped up.
He said yes, so that it
So
is.
it is Michael.
Thanks, Michael, for
What's
tuning
up,
in.
Michael? Thanks. So yeah.
we got our cigar lit.
Oh,
We've got to that point, right? How are we gonna enjoy this sucker? For me, I know when it's cigar time, it's my time. It's me time. I know I'm gonna make that cut. I'm gonna make it draw perfectly. I'm gonna light this sucker good, because I know for the next hour and a half to 2 hours, it's gonna be me and the cigar and probably a drink and some good music. So I'm gonna make sure I do those first 3 steps. I'm gonna make sure I cut, light, and smoke, if you will, get it going. I'm gonna make sure those 3 steps are
out of the way.
out of the way and they're done correctly. That way, I don't have to worry about nothing. I can sit back. I can enjoy some music. I can enjoy a drink. I can relax. Enjoy some time with my friends.
Yeah, just enjoy your time.
Just chill out.
I was getting that music going. Speaking of music, so we like to listen to music and just talk, conversate, relax, and just enjoy a cigar. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like I said, I've said it on this show before. I look forward to doing this show because we're doing exactly what we're talking about in this episode.
Right.
We're cutting a cigar, toasting that foot, lighting it, and then getting to a point to where it's lit, you're smoking it, and you're enjoying it, and you're able to just conversate and listen to music, have yourself a drink, and relax. You know what I mean? You know that once you light that, to me, it's kind of like a commitment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once you light it, it's like you hate to. There's been times where it's like, oh man, I gotta go and do something, or something comes up really quick. You gotta go do something, run in the house, or whatever maybe. And you set it down, and you're like, oh, I hope it doesn't go out. I hope it doesn't go out. And it's just because, for me, everything's going so good at that point that it's like you hate to come back and have to kind of restart it, if you will.
Right.
That's kind of my thought on it. You know what I mean?
I just know it's going to be my time. I'm dedicating this next, let's say, 2 hours to me. I'm going to unwind. I'm going to wind down. I'm going to enjoy myself and this cigar. And I highly recommend playing your choice of music. I don't know if you could hear our music in the background. We just started it. And by the way, we don't own any rights to this music. It's something I got to say. But I highly recommend music, and I highly recommend a drink. If you don't drink alcohol, get a frickin' Dr. Pepper or a root beer or a cream soda. If you don't drink soda, get a damn water.
Yeah,
You gotta drink something when you smoke a
Seltzer
cigar. You
water.
have to.
that's something that's big with me. And when I'm not drinking, a beer or whiskey or whatever it may be, I've came out here with the big hit for me lately, and I've told you about it, is the Cokes with coffee.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, I mean, that tastes good, and
That shit is fire.
yeah, it's good. So it just depends on what you're into, like I said. But ultimately, it's a commitment for me. Once you light that cigar and you're ready to go, you got it going.
It's time to relax.
It's time to just, forget about everything else and just relax. And there's times like, and my wife will vouch where I'm, I come home from work, I'm tired, long day or whatever, not in the best mood. And I'll come out here and I'll smoke a cigar and I'll go inside and, totally relaxed, happier, just, I don't know, it just changes the way that I feel, and it's just nice, you know what I mean?
Right.
And not only that, I mean, it's kind of different sometimes because, sometimes I'm out here by myself, a lot of times I'm out here with you, or you may be, for those people that have lounges and stuff, that's awesome, take advantage of it, because you may strike up a conversation with somebody you don't even know, and you guys share the same common interest, obviously, of smoking cigars and getting into, the cigar community, that you're able to, start something new and, just conversate and relax. So that's a big thing for me.
It's crazy the different types of conversation you could spark up just from smoking a cigar. I promise you, even between Matt and I, if we're just sitting here with no cigar, even if we're drinking beer, we're gonna drink all the beer in the world, we wouldn't talk about most of the stuff we do if we weren't smoking a cigar. I promise you.
Right. And it just level head. For me, it just gives me a level head and relaxes me to a point to where I'm able to just,
Like opens your mind.
yeah, kind of carefree. And
So with that being said, make sure you're in a good environment. You got good people around you. You got good music playing. You got something to drink, and you've got time to spare because cigar smoking takes a long time. It's a commitment, like Matt said earlier. It's not something you can come take a few. It can, if that's what you want it to be. You can come take a few puffs.
Right.
Go back into your busy life. But
right, like on social media and stuff, I see a lot of people that they'll be like, "Oh, cigar, work break cigar," and it's like, how long of a work break? You know what I mean? Because I know for me, we don't have like designated breaks. Some people may have work break times or 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it may be, or a lunch break, which could be like, an hour or whatever. But I don't know. There's sometimes where it's like work break, like, I don't know if those people, they'll light it, they'll smoke it for the 15 or the 30 minutes, and then they'll just let it burn out by itself,
right.
and then come back to it on their lunch break. I don't know what the case is, but we'll do what works for you ultimately, because, as long as you're able to at least somewhat get into that cigar time, I think it's going to benefit you.
Right. Well, for me personally, I hate being rushed.
Yeah.
When I'm smoking a cigar, that's my worst thing. I hate having to worry about what I'm going to do next. Like, I got to finish this fast as shit because I got to go, whatever it may be. And I hate people tell me to hurry up.
Right. And I think that's for people that hang out with friends or family that don't enjoy cigars, that's when I feel it a lot of the times, you know what I mean?
But I found, because our friends don't like to smoke cigars, but I found that they've realized that, yeah, we're going to be gone for an hour, maybe 2 hours. If you want to fucking come hang out with me, you'll come outside and you'll smell my cigar smoke because I'm not going inside because this is me time.
Right.
This is me and cigar time. I'm in it. I'm in it to finish it.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. And it's an experience, and it just takes you some time to enjoy it, so.
Anybody have any questions or comments? 20 minutes to 3 hours apiece, for sure. You say 20 minutes. I have smoked some smaller cigars that have taken, 15, 20 minutes. Like, let me give some examples. The T by Caldwell, I believe. That's a little short guy.
Shorter one, yeah.
The Short Story, some of the nub cigars. You would think, just by looking at these flying pigs, they would be a quick smoke, but they're not. Liga Privada Papas Fritas.
Nasty fritas.
Or the Nasty Fritas, they're a quicker smoke that I really like. If I know I don't have enough time, that's something I'll pick up. A Short Story, the T.
See, and that's what's crazy. So even for me last night, I posted that I was smoking the Numero Uno, the Joya de Nicaragua. Shout out to you, thanks by the way. So that one's like I don't even know what gauge that is. It's like a smaller one.
It's a smaller gauge for sure. I can't tell.
But it's kind of I don't know how long it was. I think it was like a 6.75 or a 7. I think is what it said. And so I was like, I don't know how long this is gonna last. And I was looking some stuff up on it to try and see how long the average person smokes it for. And most people say like an hour 30 to 2 hours. And sure enough, that's what it ended up taking me. Even though it was a smaller ring gauge, it was longer. It just burned. I wasn't trying to rush it, but I wasn't trying to, take forever. Like most cigars. But still, it took me. Even though I thought it was gonna, be a quick smoke, it wasn't.
Right.
And that's so kind of one thing too. That I don't know if we touched on it yet, but like don't rush it, because I've noticed, even in my novice, time, don't try and rush it, because sometimes like there's times where I still have, a quarter of a cigar and I'll start puffing on it. Maybe it's just because I like it so much that I start puffing on it so fast and hard, trying to draw it real hard, that I'll still have a ways to go, and the tip of my fingers are hot, and it's like, wow, you know what I mean? Because, I'll relate it back to other times where I'll smoke something totally different, and maybe I'm not drawing it as hard, or I'm not puffing on as much, and it won't get hot until the last little bit.
Right, you gotta take your time for sure. I'd say, how I smoke a cigar, this is me. I'll take 3, maybe 4 puffs. I'll hold the smoke in my mouth for 5, 6 seconds. I'll open my mouth, I won't even exhale. I'll just let the smoke go. Retrohale every once in a while. For those of you that don't know what retrohale is, you take the smoke in your mouth. You let, let's say, 80% of it go out of your mouth. The remaining 20% you'll blow out your nose without inhaling. It's really hard to learn, but you can taste the cigar notes. You can taste the cigar way more if you retrohale. It's like drinking wine. You'll hear of people drinking wine and they exhale out their nose as they swallow. So it lets them taste all the notes of the wine. But you can't be puffing it every second like a cigarette, or I don't even know what else you puff a lot. But you got to take your time. Just know when you light this thing, designate at least 2 hours to enjoy it. Because if you don't, it's not going to be the same experience.
And if you come up short, cool, whatever. As long as you enjoy it and you enjoy the time that you're having your own time to smoke a cigar, that's great. And that's what we're trying to get through, just like we've said from the first episode, second episode, third episode. Do what works for you and enjoy it, because, especially me, that's what I've learned is I'm able to just relax, enjoy this time for myself, and, get to a point where I'm level-headed and enjoying myself, enjoying the music, whatever it may be,
Yeah, if you have a quarter of a cigar left and you're content with the way you feel, the way it made you feel, be done. Don't feel like you have to sit there and shove a toothpick in it and smoke it till there's nothing left.
Right. And that's another thing we could bring up on another show. Maybe touch on it anyway. I see a lot of people that use the picks and stuff for that very last end of it, which is awesome, because I don't have one yet. But I find myself sometimes where it's like, man, I love this cigar so much, or I enjoy this cigar so much, to where
Let me show you what I do. I carry a pocket knife everywhere I go. I poke it in there, and look at that. It ain't gonna burn my fingers. That's my nub holder. So we can talk about it right now.
yeah,
They make all kinds of fancy nub holders that, I mean, you could use anything. I'm using a pocket knife, and this is what I'm gonna use. I ain't gonna go spend $40 on a nub holder. I'm just not. But you smoke your cigar so far down, it starts burning your fingers. No matter how slow you smoke it, you're drawing on that cigar. The ashes, the coal, or whatever you want to call it, the cherry on the top of the cigar, gets so hot it starts burning your fingers. You can't hold it no more. They call it a nub. You shove something in there, you could use a screw, you could use a toothpick, you could use a nail, you could use your wife's bobby pin, or you could go buy a $20, $30, $40 nub holder and shove it in there. It's going to do the same thing.
I think I'm risking it right here. I don't know if I'm risking it, to be honest. It doesn't seem that unstable. So I got a bunch of ash, like a good majority. I don't think I've ashed this cigar since I started smoking. So that's pretty much like, you know.
That's some good construction right there.
So yeah, and that's another topic too. It's like sometimes you'll get a cigar that the ash will be really light and it'll want to fall off, and then you'll get some that are, well constructed and they'll stay together even though you've already burned, a good majority of it.
Right.
So.
Something I just did is I purged my cigar, which we didn't talk about. We're talking to new cigar smokers smoking your cigar. So as you light your cigar and smoke it, let's say my cigar was this long when I first lit it. I lit it, started smoking. That smoke has to travel all the way through all this tobacco, all this unburnt filler, all the way until it gets in your mouth, right? It's going to eventually taint the flavor of this unsmoked tobacco up here. So every, third or fourth time I go to take a draw, I'll blow through it. And that's called, it just blows all the smoke out of this unburnt stuff out into the atmosphere.
Yeah, and that's something I blow through it. I can't say I really ever do, to be honest, which, I should try.
And you'll notice the different flavors as you start doing it. It's became a habit for me. Pretty much every puff I take, I'll blow through it. And you can see the smoke come out. That's not smoke coming from here. That's smoke that was trapped inside of this unburnt tobacco.
That ash don't seem like it wants to fall off, so I'm just going to leave it.
And speaking of ash, you can tell the construction of the cigar, in my opinion, by the way your ash holds on. I've been ashing this thing because last week I ashed myself like a fucking idiot all over myself. I didn't want to do that, so I've been taking my ash off in the ashtray here. But they say, that's another thing we could talk about. The longer your ash, they claim the cooler your smoke's going to be.
Really?
Because you're still drawing through all that ash, so it's going to cool the air as it's coming through the cigar. So they say not to ash this cigar, which I do. Call me an idiot, call me stupid. But if my ash gets long where I think it's going to fall off, I'll go ahead and tap it or roll it against the ashtray so it falls off and looks like this. But that's another. If your cigar's getting too hot, try to leave the ash a little longer before you ash it. That might help you out.
Even with this one. So, something that I found that works for me is I'll take a really not short, but a really slow draw so that it doesn't get as hot on my fingers. And it works for me because I'm able to, hold on to it and, draw it, but still get that smoke production and enjoy it. So,
All right.
Yeah, but that's, I think we covered all our bases here as far as cutting, lighting, and enjoying, smoking and enjoying your cigar.
I think if you take anything out of this episode, don't be scared to cut, light, and enjoy your cigar. And make sure, this is the biggest thing I think, is make sure you have enough allotted time to enjoy that cigar, whatever it may be.
Right.
Because if you're rushed, I promise you it's not going to be a good experience. I don't start really enjoying, like I enjoy the flavor and the taste of a cigar from the first puff. But the experience is the first third. Once that first third's done, I really, like, yeah, I'm enjoying the hell out of this.
Right. Yeah, and I can agree with that because I don't know. It's kind of like once you get into it, you're into it. You know what I mean? You're going for it. So
Finish what you started. Excuse me. But we've been going for an hour now, a little over an hour. I'm down to the nub on this thing. I want to smoke the rest of it as much as I can. Me and Matt are going to sit here and conversate off camera. Enjoy the rest of our night. We hope you guys do the same. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing.
yep. Thanks, Michael, for all the comments and the feedback. This episode, just like last, we appreciate it. And for anybody that has any questions, like we've said before, hit up Daymon, hit up myself, Barry, or Bones, as you may know him from his show, No Bones About It. Hit up Chicks from Chicks and Sticks. She has some good insight.
She'll be on Thursday night. Make sure you tune into her.
Yeah.
For sure.
And hit up, Bones' show was last night, so Monday nights, be sure to tune into Bones' show. And hit up Ray as well, If he's busy, if we're busy, whatever, we'll try and get back to you whenever we can with the comments or the feedback that we can give you guys for questions that you may have, especially if you're a newbie as far as our channel goes. We'll help you as best we can. And
for sure.
not just me, like I said, I'm even newer into it than some of you, but Daymon, he's a good insight. And like I said, everybody else, Bones, Ray, Chicks, hit them all up. Watch all their shows Monday nights. Watch our show Tuesday nights. Watch Chicks Thursday nights. And yeah, stay smoky. Enjoy it. Do what works for you. Keep it simple. And yeah, let us know how it goes.
Make sure you tune in next Tuesday night. We'll be back again with another, what I say? Ball busting episode, baby. Later.
Later, guys.